one of the ladies, she came across to me and was having a chat. And she said, look, I'd like to get some gardening done. She was sort of semi-retired, but she was going to increase her hours. And she said, I need my lawns done and things. And I was going to give her a quote. And she said, don't worry about it. She said, I used to live in Launceston and I had a Jims Mowing guy for 10 years and he looked after me. And I know that the brand looks after me.
So Matt, thank you very much for joining us today on the Jims Group and the Jims Mowing podcast. You've just been going for 2 years and your mates with Damien and Jason from Tassie who have been on the podcast before and they convinced you to come on, which is fantastic. And as you mentioned earlier, you're just a bit earlier into your journey than those guys. So it'd be great to hear about your experience. So we always start off with the first question about what were you doing prior to Jims Mowing?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Joel. Prior to coming into Jims Mowing, I was in the public service for 20 years. That's my last 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So prior to that, I did a few jobs living in Melbourne, worked in a factory, got some qualifications in accounting, did some accounting roles over there, and then came back to Tassie to live from Melbourne. Yeah, and spent the last 20 years in the public service. So, yeah, just needed a change, basically just public serviced out. And really just needed to be needed a fresh freshen up. So yeah,
I can imagine. And I think Jason comes from a similar background with what he was saying. And so how's it then Jims Mowing, or did you stumble across Jims Mowing as your sort of way out or option to go to?
Well, it's interesting. Well, Jason and I are good friends outside of work, so we spend time together as a group of mates that we get away together and do things. Jason and I went away couple of times and it's about an hour's drive. We just talked about Jims Mowing the whole way and all the way back. And it happened a couple of times. And then I got home and I just said to my partner, I said, look, there's something I need to, this is something I'm interested in. I could have listened to Jason all day talking about it. So I gave Jason a call and he put me in touch with Tim Respondic, who was our last franchisor. Tim got in contact with me and it went from there.
Did you like the idea of gardening, or was it more about the freedom, or was it more about, what was it about what Jason was saying to you that made you think you wanted to do it or that you could do it?
Well, I could see, potentially, I love gardening, so I like being out in the garden and I love mowing the lawn, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist with the lawn. So I like to get out and mow the lawn. I like the smell of a fresh cut lawn. All those things, that was an interest already. And I could see a lot of probably what Jason, I could see myself in Jason. Like I could see, like he just sort of said, it's been great. It's been a great move into Jims Mowing from being in the public service. So it was virtually the same sort of thing. And I thought, this is something I could make a go of. And when it sort of gathered momentum, I just kept in touch with Jason as well as Tim Respondic, the franchisor, that already sort of well down the path by the time I'd sort of made that decision to do it, sort of done my due diligence, spoken to Jason about, Jims Mowing, VIP, things like that. The old Coke and Pepsi analogy came up again. And, I could see exactly what he was talking about, just Jason's a good operator. So it was just good to sort of, really soundboard off him early and just touch base and get a good feel for what I was potentially going into. So,
and then how did you go up the training? Because being in 20 years in employment can be quite a rude awakening. All of a sudden you quit your job or you leave it, and next thing you know you're in Melbourne and you're sitting in the classroom, and then you give me a lot of doubt and stuff like that. So how was that whole experience for you during the week?
Oh, the training was fantastic. For starters, I never thought I'd leave the public service. They often say it's harder to get in than get out. So, I'd always sort of imagined myself retiring in the public service. And to me, I probably would have been one of the last people that would have thought would have made that jump, leaving a full-time permanent position in the public service and going off and doing gardening. But to me, it was, it was something I just needed to do. The training was awesome. I loved the training. It was informative. I took a lot of notes at training. I found I got a lot out of it. A real lot out of it, in all aspects, even the generic training. John Wilds was fantastic. I just can't remember the other gentleman's name.
There'd be John and was there Des at the time, or was it Ben Ward?
Yes.
Yeah,
Des Ward. Yeah. They were fantastic. Just even after the training, you could sort of ask some questions and any sort of little queries you had. They're all, approachable. And it was the same with Jim. I mean, Jim giving out his mobile number at training. Des and John gave me their as well. said, look, if you want to, ask me any questions, just give me a call. So I just, those sort of things just go a long way in settling someone in with any queries and just making everything feel really comfortable and a smooth transition. So I thumbs up for the training, and just the facilities were fantastic. Everything was just so well done. It was great.
That's great to hear. And I was going to say, then you leave the training and then you go back and you're in your first week. So do you remember your first week and how was that?
It was good. I started off with, I bought an established business.
Yep.
I basically had about 35 customers. A lot of my customers were in the city, around the city of Hobart, West Hobart, that sort of thing. I live 15 kilometres south of Hobart. So basically travelling up into town, working some of these little smaller streets, tighter spots, things like that. It's not like Melbourne or Sydney, but, for Hobart, there's a tight spot, especially when you've got a trailer. And so I've got the trailer and the ute set up. So it's really, sort of, getting used to getting all your tools out of the trailer, getting everything set up, getting up and running and then going for it. The great thing was that even prior to coming to training, I spent a couple of weeks out in the field with Jason.
Good.
He was just, he's a great operator. He just knows exactly what to do, what to say, and those sort of things now I still resonate with me when I'm working. So I haven't changed any of that. A lot of that stuff is just basically some of the stuff that Jason told me, and also the franchisee that I bought off. His name was Matt as well. So he basically took me out for a couple of weeks and we did the run. So we actually did a few customers twice. So we did it in sort of patches. So by the time my first week came, I was ready to get the ground running. It was a really nice, smooth transition as well. So I wasn't panicking about anything. I wasn't nervous. So I was just ready to go. I was really ready to go.
Well, it's good to hear you had a lot of support because it's not always the case. Sometimes some people just come in and buy a new sale and then they're going to do all these other things. But it looks like you've come in with a lot of support with Jason's obviously very knowledgeable. And it's great to hear that the outgoing franchisee went and accommodated you well for the 2 weeks, which I think is really important and good to hear as well. And with maybe let's say the first couple of months of doing your business, where have you built your business to so far? Like how many regs do you have? What sort of work do you like doing, or what sort of business have you made for yourself in these 2 years?
Basically, a lot of my franchise is actually Jims Mowing, Kingston. So yep. I'm only like 500 metres from where my territory starts. What I've actually done is some of the jobs, they're up in the city that I had when I first bought the business. For whatever reason, they've actually, moved or, some of them have passed on. And, customers just drop off. What I did is I started bringing my run back towards where I live into my territory. Now I've probably got about 10 or 12 of those customers that I had in town. Some of them are the real estate jobs. Some of them are just residential jobs, which I do gardening for on a regular basis. But what I've done now is I've basically created my run and my client base, my regular base, within probably 5 to 7 kilometres from my house. So I've got about 80 regular customers, and I find that that's a good number for me. A lot of my customers stay on that fortnightly. Some of them are weekly. Some of them go out to 4 weekly in winter, which we're in at the moment. But when that comes to spring, that's a manageable amount of customers for me. As far as what I like to do, I mean, I've sort of put my hand up for most things. When I say most things, I remember listening to a podcast with Damien Bush the other day, and he was talking about staying in your lane, not getting out of your lane. And I stay in my lane. And so I'm doing probably mulching would be my landscaping. The furthest I'd go with landscaping, but obviously pruning and trimming and cleanups and things like that. Mowing, obviously, but I'm sort of very happy doing what I'm doing. As I said, my customers are very flexible. They like, some of them like pruning, some of them just like to clean up sometimes. So even for my regular customers, I'm generating a lot of work. I'm always looking to upsell things and just talk about what we could do and, refreshing with a mulch of their garden, or, these things are sort of hanging over, look at pruning things back. So I always try to keep a very good relationship with my customers, and I've got a really good customer base, and I'm, no customer, I could ring any customer now and they'd have a chat. So that's the way I like to be with my with my customers, I like to be personable, not too close, but personable and approachable. So, and that's held me in good stead.
Now, what's you as good customer service? Because there's obviously a lot of independents around, and there's an independence, versus Jims Mowing thing sometimes, and there's a lot on podcasts, and you listen to independents and you think the independents never do anything wrong, according to them. But I was going to say, what to you then is the Jims Mowing difference? So what's the difference in your business? So let's talk about what's good customer service to you. How do you have so many good relationships? What are you doing from a customer service experience?
Well, I think one of the main things is obviously communication. Communicating with the customers and just letting them know what's going on. That's key. That's probably one of your number one things. I think one of the things that's a lot different between the Jims Mowing brand, and I always talk about the brand, the way I think about it, I always try to protect the brand. I think that comes from Jim, and that I think that resonates down through to the workers. I mean, you got someone at the top being so protective of the brand, it just naturally rubs off. That's where I always try and look at ways of protecting the brand. So, for example, like if I roll up to a customer's place, I get regularly, I'll be working in someone's yard and I'll turn around and all of a sudden there'll be someone saying, well, could you come and have a look at, I'd like to get my lawns mowed on a regular basis or some pruning done or things like that. And you might have been working and you've got dirt all over you, sweat and everything like that. I've actually got a jumper that I've got now that I don't actually work in the yard. I keep it in my ute. So I'll actually, when I go over to this customer, I'll actually put this clean jumper on. I've got a fresh cap in the car as well. I'll put that on and basically clean myself up and I'll go across to that person's house. Whereas if you went across some of the independents, they're not in uniform. I'm not saying that that's not a bad thing, but I think the look of a uniform and the way that you present, that's a big part of it. So, that first interaction with that person in that first 20 to 30 seconds is crucial. So if you look presentable, you've gone over as soon as you finish what you're doing, you hand them a card. It basically it's like a natural progression, and then all of a sudden it just creates probably a mood, or that you can basically talk about anything about what they want to do in their yard, suggestions, things like that. And most of the time you'll get the job. I think that's the big difference of the Jims Mowing brand and independent.
Well, I love that. I love that bit of advice you said, which was the about the having the clean shirt and hat in the car. I think that's just a simple thing, but it's as you said, it's such a powerful thing for customers. I originally love that. And always have some cards. I always have probably half a dozen cards in my wallet because you go to the supermarket and someone will see the Jims uniform and they'll just say, could you come and have a look at my property? I need to have something done. The cards are in the car. You can't do it. You can't give them a card. So it's just those little things that really set you apart, I suppose. And I also think people are more inclined to come up to you because of the brand as well. Like if they see the trailer on the street, they see you working, it might be middle of the job. It's hard to see the finished job, but I know it's Jims Mowing and what that stands for. Whereas if you have another unknown or another independent operator, they don't know what that brand is really. So knowing that Jims Mowing brand, and even in the shop, as you said, people coming up to you, I think instantly it has a high level of trust and credibility because it's been around for so long. And I think the goodwill, in 2024 with all the jobs that have been done in Tassie and around your area, just all compounds.
Exactly. That reminds me of a story that I actually have got about 5 or 6 houses, 4 on one side of the street, 2 on the other. And I've got them all set up as the same mowing cycle. And so one of the ladies, she came across to me and was having a chat. And she said, look, I'd like to get some gardening done. She was sort of semi-retired, but she was going to increase her hours. And she said, I need my lawns done and things. And I was going to give her a quote. And she said, don't worry about it. She said, I used to live in Launceston and I had a Jims Mowing guy for 10 years and he looked after me. And I know that the brand looks after me. So she was comfortable with me to just come in and start mowing the lawn. I basically looked after her, didn't rip her off or anything. She was happy with that. I just did some mulching for her in the last couple of weeks. She just said, go ahead and do the mulching, send me the invoice. It's just that smooth transition. It's that goodwill that's come from another part of the state where that customer is basically, happy to just start working with you. And as I said, it comes back. That's the difference with an independent as well. It's that goodwill. It's that brand. She's had a good experience and now she's just happy to to use the brand, which is great.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And it's why Jims obviously so strident on complaints as well with Jims Mowing, because of that sort of effect, as you said, that good experience. And if they have a bad experience, you can do the opposite. But what you said, there's a fantastic illustration of that point. And it's great to hear you got 6 customers in the same street on the same cycle. Jim, I love hearing that, because when he talks about improving your income, that's the one thing you always understood about is close to home, closest home, no travel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jason always says it, and I've watched Jason's podcast before, and you don't make money sitting in the car.
Right.
So, it's one of those things. I think we're a little bit luckier down here in Tassie where we haven't got the traffic and things like that. But, it's even using it as an example of Tassie. I mean, in the city, it was 15 minutes when there's no traffic. But in peak hour, it takes me probably half an hour. It can take me a bit longer, depending on if there's anything that happens. So, to be sort of driving out the door at 8 o'clock and mowing the first, starting the lawnmower at 8:05, it's so much better to be able to consolidate that run. And I've got to the point now where I've actually got pockets of my territory or area where I actually work in the whole day. So I've actually structured, like, even though it's only 10 minutes away, 10 minutes away, I'll do my day over there, and then the next day I'll be in another pocket and then another pocket. So it's sort of, then I'm sort of working my way back home. I get home at a decent hour, very happy. I haven't sat in traffic, haven't had to drive long distances and things like that. So it's been, it's good. And I've noticed a difference in my income for sure doing that.
That's great. So, I was going to say, how did you pick up those extra clients in the street? Was it something where you're dropping in flyers, or how did you get those clients all to be in the same street?
Well, the first one was a lead. It came through as a lead, and I picked it up as a regular mow. The gentleman asked me to do some pruning front and back of the house, and I was pruning the front yard. The neighbour across the road actually saw me pruning and how it came out and how I was sort of taking the time to do the right, not rushing it and things like that. Yeah, I gave her a card, grabbed her number, organised a time and went and met with them, started mowing their lawn, done some pruning for them. Then the neighbour on the top side, she was looking for a gardener, so I started doing hers. And then the neighbour on the bottom side, which is the lady that came from Launceston, and then the neighbour across the road, which you get a lot of the time. The gardener, the independent gardener, wasn't BRP or anyone, just went walkabout.
Yeah.
So it all happened from one lead. Then all of a sudden you've got 6 jobs in the one street. So the car sits there for well over half a day.
Amazing how people have a sticky beak and have a look at your work and check out what you're doing. It's amazing to what happens with that sort of stuff.
It is, and that's probably where it comes back to. I mean, I talk about a lot of the times, even, when I talk about how you present. Personally, I'm a big believer. I'll wash my car every weekend. I'll repack my car, I'll hose down my trailer. I make sure everything's spick and span. And I think that, that goes a long way in just the overall presentation of how you come across. Even packing your trailer, I'll look at that, things like that. I don't have anything hanging out. So that all snowballed just from how I cut that hedge on one property. 6 customers came from that one lead.
Amazing.
Snowballs.
I was going to say as well, how was your body in the early days as well, transitioning from, I don't know, I presume it was an office or more of an hands-off office role, was it? Or
yeah, I was in the office, Joel. Yeah. I was a pen pusher.
Nothing wrong with that. That's what I do. But I was going to say, how was the body then? So you've gone from being in the corporate for 20 years to this. It can be quite a bit of like a shock. But you had it 2 weeks before going out, which was great. But how was the body?
Yeah, look, body's good. I've been in my previous roles. I've actually been like a safety group with one of my previous employees. So from the very start, I'm 6'5". So I wore a back brace, just a preventative back brace. And one thing I noticed with work, especially out with Jace, the brush cutters, things like that, they had like lube handles. So I got onto the Catch Pro site and bought some what they call whipper grippers.
Yep.
Attached them up to the brush cutters. So I got a nice tall stance, not bending over. So look, I'd say I wasn't sore the first couple of weeks, but yeah, it was yeah, it was gradually over time, your body just gets more battle hardened, I suppose. Not battle hardened, but you just become more.
Those muscles that you might not have used before you start getting used to it and stuff like that. And
yeah, exactly. And the other thing I did too is that sort of background with the safety stuff. I got all my gear through the steel shop here in Kingston. So I took my mowers in. I noticed straight away that my mower handle was too light. So what they did is they unbolted the handle and then they raised the handle up. So I'm standing upright, not bending over when I'm mowing my lawn. So all that stuff's just helped me manage my body.
And the back brace you said is a good thing. So sorry to interrupt you. I'm keen to hear about the back brace, because the back brace, so preventative back brace, so that's something you've had right from the start. Is that like it's like a black thing you just put around your blower back, or how does it work?
Yeah, basically it was a black back brace. It's almost like a weight belt, but not as bulky as a weight belt. And I just bought it from Chemist Warehouse. It was $60. And it's got some sort of flat metal rods in the back, so it keeps a nice shape. And just basically put it on like a weight belt, straps up, and just keeps your posture nice and straight. Yeah, it's been great. I also go and get a massage every 4 weeks. Jace got me onto that.
It's a good idea.
So, yeah. So I've just gone to the other side of 50. So, it's sort of like you've got to look after yourself. It's sort of like I just sort of think to myself that, Jace always said it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you just got to look after your body and listen to your body.
No, so I was going to say it's a really good idea talking about the actual back brace and the massage and things. I don't think a lot of blokes go really hard and flog themselves sometimes in spring and they completely forget about doing those sorts of things. And I think it's really important to do it.
100%. I mean, I look at it like, you service your tools, your brush cutting, your mowers and things like that. Your body's probably the most important tool you've got, because if it's not right, you can't use any of the others. So, that massage every 4 weeks is just really good to just get everything back in shape, get you nice and fresh, take any aches and pains out, and, keep you going in the right direction. So I think that's a lot of people probably don't think to do that. I think they really should. It's something that a lot of people should, even if you're not tall, it should be something that everyone should be thinking about doing.
I agree. It's a really good bit of advice. And I was going to say, now you mentioned Catch Pro, which is great. The Catch Pro boys will love that. Is what other equipment do you use? So what brands do you like? What sort of setup are you running down there?
Well, I did the same. I mean, I basically chatted to Jason about it. I always had a Mass Sport mower and a steel brush cutter.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Jason, said, what do you use? And he said, Mass Sport mowers and steel combi units and brush cutters. So it was a no-brainer, and we've got the steel shop here in Kingston, only 5 minutes away. So I bought all my gear through there. If anything needs any attention or a service or something breaks, I'm always running around fast there, so I could just drop something off. The guys are great. They'll have it back to me in probably a day, and that way then I can just keep going, get on the road again. And then when I get the equipment back, I can, it's very easy. I looked at doing battery, and I spoke to Rob at the steel shop, Rob and Karen, and Rob just said, look, I don't think battery's there at the moment. We have the Ego gear down here, but we don't have an Ego mechanic or a service person. So it was a bit it was a bit of a no-brainer, really, having a steel shop in your territory. It was just like, yeah, so I find that gear really good. It's
a lot of franchisees use it. Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of guys use it. I mean, it's either Honda or Mass Sport new mowers. Yep. A lot of guys down here. But I've just found the Mass Sport stuff to be really good. It's not self-propelled, but it pushes along really well, and you can take it downstairs. I think that's the difference between the self-propelled and the normal push. It doesn't get bogged down when it's wet. You can take it down a set of stairs. It's probably half the weight. You just got to think about little things like that. So some of the yards I go to, I've got to take the mower down the stairs, and if it's 55, 60 kilo mower, compared to 30 kilo, it's a big difference.
Yeah, the HRU Honda's pretty heavy. I know how heavy they are. We've got them at training here. We have to move it some time, so they're a beast, but they're very, very heavy. And I was going to say as well with your servicing every week, just do a service on a Sunday night, or how do you maintain? Are you maintaining yours yourself, or you mentioned the mower shop, you take stuff in for repairs, but what about servicing? What do you recommend people do?
Well, I'm basically every Saturday, and it was a similar sort of thing. These are the sort of things I picked up from Jason and very early. I actually service mine every Saturday morning. So I'll take I've got two of everything in the trailer. I'll take everything out and I'll clean out filters. I'll clean out spark arresters, take the heads off the brush cutters, clean all that out, do all those things, all that preventative maintenance. Every single piece of equipment I'll service and I'll even start it. So there's some equipment that's in the shed that doesn't get used all the time, but it might have been serviced, but I'll just start it and just make sure it's still running okay. Yeah, so I basically do that every Saturday.
Yep.
I'll do all my lines up. I'll repack my ute. I'll make sure that I've got everything where I need it. Big on actually, if I need something, I need to grab it. I know it works. I don't want to be sort of giving it 10 pulls and not getting it to work. It just doesn't look professional. It's unproductive and things like that. So I just make sure that my gear's always running well. Some of the things that, I'll get the steel shop to do would be, potentially a block carburetor. I'm going to get on to starting to learn how to do that myself because I do, some of the equipment does block up in the carburetor, which is a bit more in depth. Most of the time, a lot of the servicing stuff, I'll do that myself. I'll make sure that everything's all running neatly. So
there you go. No, that's great to hear. And obviously, Jason's been a great mentor in regards to his advice to yourself, which you picked up, and which is awesome to hear as well. And I was going to say as well, with the business financially, you've been happy with how it's been for you and what you've been doing?
Yeah, very happy.
Yeah, good. You can tell by your smile. That's good. You don't have to say how much, but yeah, it's just always trying to get it across to people that it's a good, is it around about the same as what you're previously on, or you're on more than what you're previously with the corporate stuff?
Oh, I had a pretty well-paying job in the public service.
Yeah.
I'm on 2.5 times more than what I was on.
Pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, I can't complain. I was smiling all the time. It's just, it's just the best move I've ever made. I couldn't be happy with it. It's just been, a breath of fresh air, and basically just being your own boss is just you can do what you want. You can ramp things up. You can sort of stay where you are. I've thought about doing that. I've thought about going down the path, taking someone on.
Yeah.
But I'm actually very comfortable, very happy to be flexible so I can do what I want. And get a couple of rainy days and get rained out. I'm not sitting around and watching, the weather all the time and, thinking I've got to pay someone to do something.
Yeah.
I've got that flexibility, and then I can just completely throw my week out and do something different, so depending on what's happening. But yeah, it's just all around. I mean, I can't fault from the training to where I am today. It's just been great. And even Damien Bush, Damien Bush is just, he's going. He's just the franchisor support. He can always ring him. He'll always pick up the phone. He'll always help you. Yeah, he's a ripper. He's great.
I'm glad to hear that. You prompted that. I should have asked you that, but it's great to hear that Damien did a good job. He's doing a good job from the support point of view, and obviously with his business experience and being around for a while as well. He's another great sounding board with Jason to shoot off. But it's great to hear financially how it's doing for you, because I think a lot of people get the misconception about the Jims Mowing franchisee or the Jims Cleaning franchisee, and just believe that the silly assumption it's $20 an hour or $30 an hour these people are doing. And so it's great to hear that's doing well for you, because it's it's the best kept secret in some ways as well, which we try and do these things to try and make let people know that, hey, it's a great opportunity. And mentally as well, how's it been for you being outside from being in the office for 20 years and maybe, a lot less emails maybe now and, maybe a lot less problems that people really happy to see you. So how's it been mentally and on your mind as well?
Well, I think that's another big difference, Joel, is I'll find in the public service, I used to talk about a thing called churn. And, you're basically just doing and you're working and it's sort of, you don't sort of see any end result.
Yeah.
And to me now, that's a big uplifting thing. You come in, mow a client's lawn and it looks all great. Everything looks presentable. You look back and you go, yep, that's good.
And I think you can't really see the result of your work. Whereas if you're doing what you're doing every day, you get job satisfaction multiple times a day because you take your job from start to finish and you can actually see what your work results in multiple times a day. Whereas I know from working in a corporate job, and you would know from the same from working in the office, endless stream of emails, what's it for? What's the point of it? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, and that's where it's so different, Joel. It's, as I said, you can see those results and, like, as I said, when you drive away and you can see the place is all neat and tidy, the customers come out and said something, thanks again, or have a great day. You know, that basically keeps you going. You can't describe it. It's actually good to just sort of help people out. I find it more than, it's not just a job or a career move for me. I find it like you really are helping the customer out. You really are just trying to be there for them. I've got a customer that's just gone into a nursing home that was 96, and every time I went to mow a lawn every fortnight, she'd come out for an hour outside in the garden with me. That was the only time she went out of the garden, because she lived by herself and she couldn't, go and do those sort of things. So to me, that was, it's more than a job. It's or a career. It's actually just helping out the community and just, doing things like that. So, the payments and all that sort of stuff comes along secondary. If you go and do that sort of stuff and be there and help just working on things and just being there for people, things will snowball. It's like the customers that I've got, the 1 to 6 in the one street. It's just things like that. You do the right thing, it just all takes care of itself, and it's very satisfying. I just find it very satisfying.
It's great to hear. I love hearing it. I was going to say, what would you sort of say to someone maybe, in your position, maybe let's say 3 years ago, a couple of years ago, what would you sort of say to them to maybe, if they're interested in doing what you're doing, what would you advise them?
I just say to them, look, do your research. Obviously, do your research, do your due diligence. As Jims always talked about that as well. We talk about that numerous times. And look, basically, don't be scared to have a go. It's not scary. You've got the support, from multiple people, franchisor, people in the head office, friends that might be in it. There's so much support around you. Talk to other franchisees about, their experiences with it, and just get as much information as you can. But don't be scared to make that jump. It's very satisfying. It's very fulfilling. I could recommend it to anyone. It's just such a good career move.
Great to hear that, and great to hear you being happy with everything as well. And hopefully this can help people out, do what you're doing. And thank you very much for your time today, Matt. Have a great weekend as well. But you provide a lot of good advice, and a lot of people can probably relate to your story. And we have a lot of people who are prospects listening to this sort of stuff. So hopefully if they're listening to this, and they can take some motivation out of your story to hopefully do what you've done, and you haven't looked back. And it's great to hear you making 2.5 times what your previous job was doing, with a big smile on your face. So that's good to hear. We don't need to go into exact financials, but I think people can get the point that that's what's possible.
And especially as a single operator, I mean,
that's a great thing to point out, is that, I like what you said about that, because a lot of the time Jim will go, we want to put your trailers on the road and have staff, but you don't need to do that. If you want to do the sole trader, there's nothing wrong with that, and you can make a really good income doing it as well.
Exactly. 100%.
Nice. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to the episode of the More Than Just Mowing podcast by Jims Mowing. If you do need help with your local gardening expert, please give us a call on 131 546 for Australia, 0800 454 654 for New Zealand, or head to jimsmowing.com.au or jimsmowing.co.nz. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you leave us a review as well, wherever you consume your podcast. We appreciate your support. And until next episode, we hope you have a great week.